Welcome members of the press to this press conference. My name is Promise Mkwananza. I'm the national spokesperson for the Citizens Coalition for Change. Zimbabwe faces a deepening political crisis characterized by narrowing democratic space, arrests, political persecution, and weaponization of the law. At the center of the crisis is the tragic failure of leadership and institutional and political illegitimacy, corruption, and moral decadence. In the advent of the SADC visit, it is our fervent hope that SADC will live up to its SIOM report and help Zimbabwe resolve its electoral dispute in order to forestall the legitimacy challenges that continue to hinder political progress and economic transformation in our country, which has adversely affected the region. As we mark 40 days since Senator Timba and 78 others have been arrested and detained without bail, it is imperative to restate the unjustified circumstances of their arrest and brutalization. Honorable Timba and others were arrested on the 16th of June 2024, a day recognized worldwide as the Day of the African Child, and which our movement has historically and traditionally commemorated. Furthermore, they were conducting a private commemoration at a private space at Honorable Timba's residence, to be specific. They were not in breach of any law, nor a threat to peace and public order. Yet the police brutally pounced on them, assaulting them with baton sticks and tear gas, before arresting and denying them bail. The excessive use of force in this case highlights the regime's unnecessary fears, insecurities, and paranoia, and this is unacceptable in what is meant to be an independent and democratic Zimbabwe. Since their inhumane and degrading treatment, Senator Timba and others were arrested and remain in political detention, denied their right to bail and living in squalid conditions. Several members of the detained sustained varied degrees of injuries emanating from police beatings and brutality. For example, Tambudzai Makoko sustained a fractured leg which has gone septical and continues to pour out pus with a possibility of being amputated. The 3 others were beaten and their eardrums burst, and no medical care has been given, save for administration of basic painkillers, which is a far cry from the severe medical attention they require. Maureen Dina is detained with a 1.5 years old baby, exposed to unhygienic prison conditions. As if this is not enough, Maureen lost her other child and was denied the right to go and bury him, ironically reminiscent of the Ian Smith regime that denied Robert Mugabe and many others to go and bury their loved ones. Nicole Chabata, a Form 4 student and O-level candidate, has continually been denied bail to allow her to pursue her studies and prepare for examinations. Another inmate who already has a disability was brutally assaulted and dislocated his leg, and there's a possibility of double disability owing to state brutality. In response, the party has continued to organize and coordinate support and solidarity to the affected through court solidarity, daily upkeep of the detained, medical and legal support, counseling, prison visits, and sustained political pressure for their release, and that this case remains on the local and international agenda. Yapfura. Okay. Citizens, you are reminded that their trial commences on the 29th of July 2024. You are employed and called upon to turn out in your numbers to offer solidarity and support, to send a message to the government that the weaponization of the law to punish and silence legitimate opposition leaders and human rights activists should not and will not be part of our political culture. In short, it is a call for local, regional, and international solidarity to voice out our concerns against the use of the law and the justice system for political persecution of opponents. Significantly, it is worth noting that this arrest of Senator Timba and others is not the only case of political arrest and persecution since the August 2023 disputed harmonized elections. A few days ago, more than 60 activists of the Zimbabwe National Students' Union were brutally and violently arrested, including their national president, Emmanuel Sitima. The statistics below highlight the escalating and disturbing trend of political persecution, including 3 rape cases in Mzarabani, displacements, evictions of villagers by chiefs, and many others. Presently, the top leadership of the alternative is under attack and under siege, either in detention, in hiding, or from one form or another of threats. Many are under threat of arrest and abduction and torture for merely being members of the opposition and the alternative. Several leaders have reported receiving anonymous calls threatening them. Church leaders who participated in the petition in Zambia have already been threatened and they have fled their homes. Corruption. The government of Zimbabwe has been the chief perpetrator of corruption, rent-seeking, and plunder of state resources, awarding lucrative contracts to themselves, their kith and kin, and their cronies and proxies. This is the root cause of the continued failure and regression of the economy, pushing millions of our citizens into abject poverty and starvation. The partisan distribution of national resources extends to food distribution, which has been highly politicized and weaponized against those perceived to hold opposing views. A prominent example is the late Mboneni Ncwebe's family, who have repeatedly been denied food. Mboneni was brutally murdered by suspected Zanu PF activists at an opposition campaign rally in Kwekwe. Several high-profile corruption cases have been reported and exposed, but no arrests have been made. Mr. Chivhayo, who has been named in several high-profile scandals, remains not only scot-free, but boastful that nothing will happen to him. We continue to vehemently denounce corruption and call on members of the public to report, expose, and denounce corruption whenever and wherever it raises its ugly head. Political and institutional illegitimacy. It is common cause that the 23rd August 23 harmonized elections were fraudulently flawed and did not produce a legitimate and outright winner. This is acknowledged by all observer missions, including SADC. This means that the government currently in place in Zimbabwe is illegitimate and not properly constituted in terms of the laws of the country. It is a de facto government. This is further exacerbated by the unlawful recall of our parliamentary and local government representatives elected on the same disputed election. This has delegitimized the current parliament. We insist on the reinstatement of the unlawfully recalled elected members and the removal of imposters who were imposed by Chabang and others in connivance with Zanu PF. The weaponization and capture of the judiciary and the disputed presidents of Mr. Mnangagwa means that Zimbabwe now suffers political and institutional illegitimacy. The three key institutions of the state, namely the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature, have not only been bastardized, they have also been totally delegitimized. In that regard, it is our considered view that the coming of SADC into Zimbabwe is a welcome and rare opportunity to help foster a political solution to Zimbabwe's challenges and restore legitimacy and avert the deteriorating political situation. The issue of the disputed elections ought to be foremost on the SADC agenda, with a view to facilitate dialogue and ultimately a political settlement between the two contending presidential candidates, namely Advocate Nelson Chamisa and Mr. Mnangagwa. In our view, there is no alternative to dialogue. There is no alternative to a political settlement. We demand the immediate and unconditional release of Honorable Timba and others, and many others who are in detention, who are before the courts, who are being persecuted. We demand that SADC puts the issue, the question of legitimacy in Zimbabwe, top on its agenda as they come to help resolve the Zimbabwe crisis. We demand and denounce the abrupt end of corruption and many other ills that have deprived our society of the progress that we so need. Thank you. There are questions?
We know that SADC is coming and eventually President Mnangagwa will be restored in the SADC shape. What would be your response? Look like it's just they don't just look at the 2023 election. It may not be part of the agenda. What's the response that is going to come from?
Well, that's exactly why we've called this press conference, to ensure that SADC is aware of the issues that are priority to the citizens of Zimbabwe, not to Mr. Mnangagwa, not to Zanu PF, but issues that the people of Zimbabwe are seized with. And at the center of those issues is the question of legitimacy. And legitimacy is paramount because every problem that we faced, every challenge that we faced, the stagnation of the economy, the deepening political crisis, and so on and so forth, they arise out of the illegitimacy of Mr. Mnangagwa. And we need SADC to help Zimbabwe. It is a rare opportunity. SADC is known historically as an organization that has offered solidarity to the peoples of Africa, of Southern Africa, who have been fighting for freedom. And at this point in time, I don't think that SADC must change its mandate. It must always relate to the wishes and the will of the people of the respective member states. Musangano wataita nhasi pane section itorimo mubumbiro renyika inototi zvinofanira kuti zvitoitika munyika. Ndava ndo nyika kana vanhu vane zvavari kunyunyuta vanofanira kutendedzwa kuti varatidzire zvavari kuratidzira. Chechipiri ndechekuti isisu kana taakuronga zvatinoronga hatironge muchivande. Ndava zvatinenge tichironga zvinenge zvisiri zvinhu zvisiri pamutemo. Tinoronga pachena pajikelele. Tinoudza munhu wese taronga zvakati. Nemapurisa tomazivisa kuti tiri kuronga zvakati. Nechikonzero chekuti mapurisa anofanira kunge atoripo achiperekedza vanhu vanenge vachiratidzira kwete vachivarova. Saka nhau iyoyo haisi nhau yekuti tingagare pano kubvunza kuti ari kuronga chakati ndiani asiri kuronga chakati ndiani, unless kana kune vanhu vari kuronga hondo, of which isusu hatisi ivavo. Isusu tiri kuronga zvekuti mashoko atiri kuda kuti anzvikwe nevari kutonga nyika neveSADC anofanira kuti asvike kwavari. Kana vana veZimbabwe vafunga kuti vada kuratidzira zvinenge zviri kwavari. Chakakosha ndechekuti varatidzire zviri pamutemo ende vazive kuti ikodzero yavo kuratidzira munyika. Vazive zvakare kuti haisi mhosva kuratidzira, kutori pamutemo, kutori mubumbiro renyika ra2013. Saka ndo mapindiro andingakuitei parizvino.